going on, guys? I'm Ben Bateman.
Oh, and I'm Mark Reilly.
And he forgot that we are
the Action Guys. That's right. I did forget. I'm sorry, but I'm here. Now I'm ready.
He's locked in.
That's right,
That was
partner.
exciting. Yeah.
That was exciting.
Should we take it back? No, we shouldn't.
Yeah.
We should never take it back. It's natural.
F it.
Here on Collider Podcast Network, this is the Action Guys. I got Mark Yodi Reilly sitting in for Andrew Guy. He's right now, his flight in Beijing was canceled, so he's sitting on a 9-hour layover. Just got a text from him.
Oh, no. That's awful.
Yeah, so he's stuck over there.
Yeah.
Which is it's a real shame for him. But he's going to be in China working for a week, which is exciting on his Clash Royale gig.
That's great.
Yeah, and so here we are. You're filling in for the second time. This is the second time you've ever been a return guest. We've also got Brandon, the Hitman Hanna, associate producer for Action Industries, here over on the other microphone. How you doing, Brandon?
I'm good. Glad
Brandon,
to be here.
Brandon filled in today for Andrew on Action Movie Anatomy.
Nice.
So it's the first time
Very cool.
Brandon's ever been on that show. So
Nice, Brandon.
the whole squad coming together.
We got the squad here. I love it.
The Hit Squad.
Yeah.
That's the group. Join the Hit Squad on Facebook.
Yeah, Brandon's got a squad. He's got a Facebook fan group.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Welcome to the club, I guess, right? Everybody who has a Facebook group,
Yeah.
you've made it.
Exactly.
Thank you.
I remember when I had my first 50 fans.
It's 73.
73 to you, mother.
I stole Andrew's joke. He made the joke. I'm
Yeah.
not that mean. I would never be that mean. Anyway, we have Mark Reilly on the side of the table talking about top 5 R-rated comedies of all time. Each of us chose a list of our 5 favorites. We're going to talk about the most iconic or funniest moment of each one of these comedies. It's crazy. There's so many good R-rated comedies. Looking at this list, you know, I realized even somebody just on our, we do this generals chat. If you're at the general level in the Patreon for Team Action, which is patreon.com/Team Action, we have this 15-minute chat that we go film right before this show every single week.
Okay.
So we get everybody's kind of vote. So each of the generals got to voice their favorite. One of them was like, I just watched Deadpool. And I was like, oh yeah, that's an R-rated comedy.
That's a great comedy.
That's a great movie. It's not even on my honorable mentions because I forgot that it was, it qualified.
Yeah, it's not on mine, I guess, because I clump it into the superhero genre, and it's even though it's a lot of comedy in there and there's a lot of action and superhero stuff.
Yeah,
so,
right.
Yeah, I put it there.
Totally. So, we are going to be talking about our top 5 action or top 5 R-rated comedies today on the show. This is the Action Guys on Collider's podcast network. Be sure to subscribe, like, comment, leave a review here on the channel. If you guys want the full video version of this, if you're hearing it on audio, the Action Industries YouTube channel actually hosts the full videos of these every single week. Nice. So you just youtube.com/Action Industries. Couple quick Patreon shout-outs, as I mentioned just a second ago. A bunch of different cool perks you can get there at patreon.com/Team Action. This weekend in San Diego, crazy Schmodown matches happening.
Oh, yeah.
Tons of Inner Geekdom action. Be sure to go get your tickets now or get the stream, Schmodown Live, theschmodownlive.com. Rachel plays Mike. You got Hlavik playing against Kevin Smets.
Yeah.
Legend. Smets, one of the all-timers. We did an hour-long stream. Actually, turned into 2.5 hours of Smets last night.
That's great.
There was a lot of drinking.
Good.
Yeah.
That's the best way, right?
Yeah. Smets was getting all fired up. It was great. And then the last shout out before we get into these lists here, guys, is that August 29th at the New York Comedy Club in New York, 2 days before the Schmodown New York happens, Andrew and I are going to be at the New York Comedy Club. 10:15 Thursday. We're doing Action Live.
That's awesome, dude.
Doing our podcast in New York, which is crazy.
I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Now I got to go to New York.
Yeah, you got to come, dude. It's going to be so fun.
I don't think I'm in the conversation for competing at this moment, but I got your back on that one.
Yeah, you got to come. It's going to be so much fun.
If that works out the way I want it to work out, then I should be there.
It'll be pretty crazy if I win my next 2.
Man.
I'm in the title shot versus
There
the winner of Oyama Merle, which I think we've all got Merle for that, right?
Yeah, we got Merle.
I mean,
for sure.
Like, Oyama's impressive, don't get me wrong.
He is.
But
he is.
It's Dan Merle.
It's Dan Merle, for sure. Yeah. That's my boy. That's our boy.
And then I would have to play Merle, which would be
hard.
I don't think the Horseman story wants that so soon.
Yeah, I know. It's like, well, that's what we have to do when you're, part of a stable that is considered, some of the best competitors. We might face each other in the tournament. Sooner or later, it's going to happen, and that's when the barn burner can happen. You respect. You go back and forth. You see who's standing at the end.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, guys, New York Comedy Club, get your tickets now. We are really, really excited. And if you're a Patreon patron, you guys get a discount code as well. So we'll send that over to you if you're a patron.
Nice.
I suggest we get into it. So Some honorable mentions, I think, to start things off.
Yeah. Plenty of honorable mentions for me as well.
There's so many.
God.
I'm going to say we quickly pick three each, maybe. Just
sure. Yeah.
Throw in there.
Yeah. Why don't you do yours? Because we had some repeats, so then I can do the others that if you mention, because we share some.
Honorable mention number 1: The Royal Tenenbaums.
That's a good one, dude.
I couldn't believe when I looked it up that it was R-rated, but of course it makes sense.
Yeah, I forgot it was R-rated.
Yeah,
it's a great one. You don't normally put, Wes Anderson in that kind of R-rated comedy kind of thing, but Royal Tenenbaums has its moments. It's a wonderful, wonderful movie.
It's my favorite Wes Anderson film. I haven't seen it in a long time.
See, I'm a Rushmore guy.
Yeah, Rushmore's great. Tenenbaums just has all these moments I love. I always really adored that movie, and Hackman's just so great in it.
He is great.
Second honorable mention for me would be MacGruber.
Nice call. Yeah.
Huge fan.
Yeah. Well, you gotta. Yeah. I'm glad you're representing that one.
We've talked about it on this very show before. We did a top 5 action comedies episode at one point, which, by the way, it's not on my list because it's not R-rated, but Spy is just one of my favorite movies.
Yeah.
I watched it again on the airplane. That movie's hilarious.
I haven't seen it in a while.
It's good. Statham just is amazing.
Of course, he's the best.
Statham steals the show.
Of course he does.
And I'll go with my my third honorable mention on this list. Oh, there's so many good ones. Wait, really? It didn't make it? That's an honorable mention?
What's that?
Office Space. I thought that was on my top 5. I guess it didn't. I guess when I really go back and look at it, Office Space didn't make my top 5.
Oh, it did not.
Crazy. That's a huge honorable mention. Office Space
is an honorable mention of mine, and it was in my top 5 for a while until I kind of had to search my feelings and go into it, and I pulled it off just barely. But it is one of the best comedies ever made.
It's so funny how our lists, I'm looking at yours here, they're very generational.
Yeah, they are.
I think it's also about like R-rated comedy. There's a level of it's funniest to you when you're at a certain age. I think you're seeing a lot of movies, you're laughing with your friends, all your friends are seeing those movies. It's like it's somewhere in your teens to your like 20s and early 30s maybe are kind of the years that it matters most. Yeah. Maybe not even into your 30s. It feels like it's almost like teens into your 20s.
It's interesting. My list, my top 5, I mean, my number 1, I can see why, and I was around the age of just getting out of college, so that was a very impressionable time for me. But then the other movies down the list is like stuff I would sneak to see when I was in my teens and my kids. My dad introduced me to a lot of these movies. I mean, he would always like, your mom's out of town, let's go put on Aliens. And I'm like, Aliens? What's that? He's like, okay, here we go. He would do the same thing for some of these movies. You're like, okay, now there's going to be a boob shot here. I want you to just close your eyes, all right? And I'd be like, sure, Dad, okay. So it is generational, but I stand by them because they still, to this day, are some of the best.
They stand up. So what are your honorable mentions here?
Honorable mentions. I got to pull, you mentioned Office Space. I'm going to throw South Park Bigger, Longer, and Uncut
It's
out
a really good one.
That almost made it into my top 5 because now all these movies, they make you laugh, but this South Park, I actually fell out of my seat laughing so hard. And it's just raunchy. It still holds up to me. I love it. Every time I put it on, I'm like, my God, this is one of the funniest movies I've ever seen.
Yeah.
The music, too. I mean, it's a musical of all things.
I don't remember the musical aspect of it.
Oh, are you kidding me? It's like Blame Canada.
Oh, Blame Canada, right.
What would Brian Boitana do? Yeah. It's like they open up the movie with making fun of Beauty and the Beast. There's a bunch of birds in the sky, and some deer just went running by. It's great. So that's a definite.
Brian Boitana, I remember that.
Oh yeah, what would Brian Boitana do? Another one that I just absolutely adore, and I know it's known as a comedy, but it has a lot of heart to it. And it's Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
It's so good.
This is one of my favorites. That's really over time has really stuck with me. It's one of those movies that just has a lot of heart to it. Sure, there's some raunchiness to it. It's really funny stuff, but it's a great movie.
One of our generals picked that as their number 1.
Yeah,
R-rated comedy.
I could see that.
What I was saying is, I went through a breakup. I remember watching that movie, and like, that really, really captures it well. A lot of the anger that you feel in a breakup is there.
Oh, it's there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. This movie got me through some hard times with my own breakup. So
yeah, exactly.
And then I'll end this since we're doing 3. This is a movie that came out that I adore. But it's one of those movies that really made an impact on not only box office but the conversation, and There's Something About Mary.
Well, so spoiler, it's in my 5. So
okay.
we can talk about that a little more.
That's great, yeah, and rightly so because I thought about putting it in my top 5. It's just so good.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many wonderful moments in it, from the opening, from the zipper, getting his bits and pieces in there. Oh my God! And then you have Cameron Diaz just rocking it with the hair. Come on. is one of those movies that
Yeah.
I just adore.
I have plenty to say about it. I can't wait till we get to it. So before we get into our lists here, any thoughts from the Hitman? I know you said on the stream that you were having a hard time thinking of your number one. Any favorites?
I think some of my favorites are ones that are in your top fives.
Okay.
Both of us?
Yeah.
Nice, okay.
Although I will say another honorable mention is Superbad.
Yeah, it's terrific.
Superbad's up there.
It's
for
crazy
me.
that Superbad didn't make either of our top five. That's pretty astounding. It's like it's a true classic.
It is a true classic. And I wonder, for me, it's kind of obvious. It's like generational. You brought it up. It's like, this is a movie, if I was that age, this would probably be my number one. Superbad, that is. If I was in high school, this movie came out, I'd probably identify with. I identify with Michael Cera's character like you wouldn't believe. That was me in high school.
Sure.
So I adore it. I just think you'll see why.
Yeah.
It's not in there, but it's deserving of an honorable mention at least.
I love that movie. Yeah, I mean, and it's not R-rated, but my favorite movie of the year so far is Booksmart, which is basically it feels like a continuation of Superbad in a lot of ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, all right, I suggest we get into our top fives.
Let's do it.
You want to start with your number five?
I'll start with my number five. It's I consider it one of the granddaddies of them all. It has National Lampoon in its title, so that should tell you everything. But it's Vacation.
Chevy Chase, the Griswolds.
Chevy Chase, the Griswolds. Harold Ramis directing. It was on the other day.
Yeah.
I sat through, watched it again. It's so perfect.
Yeah.
It's such a perfect comedy because it reminds me. I love that John Hughes actually wrote this thing because of a road trip and all the things that happened to it. And Wally World has become kind of a name that you hear, and it's immediately recognizable as like Marty Moose.
Yeah.
Wally World. Clark W. Griswold wants to have the perfect vacation for his family, and everything that can possibly go wrong goes wrong. And it's just his interactions with everybody. I am rolling every time I see it. It just affected me as a kid watching this thing, and growing up, I'm still watching this thing.
There's what, 3 sequels? There's
There's
Vegas.
European, then Christmas, then Vegas Vacation, and then I know they did some offshoots with Randy Quaid's cousin Eddie,
right? Yeah.
But those weren't good. You don't watch those. So Christmas Vacation is right behind Vacation, and we watched European Vacation yesterday. It was literally on TV, and Tom Dagnino and I were hanging out with our ladies.
These movies seem like they would be as Dagnino as it gets.
Yeah.
They feel like it's just something about Cousin Eddie and Dagnino.
They're very similar people, I think, sometimes. But Vacation at number 5, it's a classic. It still holds up. I love it to death.
What's your scene? What's your iconic?
The iconic scene. Let me think about this.
I don't know this movie super well. I mean, this is one that because it came out in the 80s. I think this movie's like 84 maybe or something.
Yeah, it's 84. No, maybe it's a little sooner. No, you're going to know better than me. Yeah, sure, 84.
I could be
you say?
wrong. It's right around there.
Iconic scene. There are so many, but I always go with when Clark and Ellen and the kids make it to the farm to be with Eddie. And then Eddie basically asks him for money.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Sure, Eddie, what do you need?" And he's like, "About $50,000." And he's pulling out like a $20 bill, and he just slides it back in, puts it there, and then as a token of goodwill, as they're leaving, he gives them those horrible white shoes.
Yeah, sure.
And Rusty's like, "Oh, Dad, those are great." Quiet, Russ, and slams the door. And it's just their timing, their interactions together, Randy Quaid and Chevy Chase, and that whole scene. I know it's like one scene, but it's like the whole scene there.
This is perfect.
It's perfect.
It's so sad.
I love it.
It's
Real tomato ketchup, Eddie?
It's so sad that Chevy Chase went on to take on this legendary persona of just the worst. Because it makes it almost hard to think about how funny he was and not just be like, man, he was.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things that his timing is so perfectly. When he's asking for directions, like, "You tell me how to get back to the turnpike?" Say, "Fuck your mama." "Thank you very much."
Yeah.
And he just gets in there and leaves.
Yeah,
It's
his timing was perfect.
great. Oh, I love it.
So I'll jump in next with my number 5, and that is going to be a movie of really a pretty similar era, actually, and that is Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Come on.
It's more John Hughes, and it's more road trip.
It is. It's road trip, more John Hughes, and I'm surprised you picked that because I don't look at Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, although it is. I'm totally with you. I see it more as it's a lighthearted comedy that really bends into some drama.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what I love about this movie.
I think one of the things about physical comedians, Chris Farley's my favorite of all time.
Yeah.
And Farley has a couple moments, really Tommy Boy and some in Black Sheep.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the movies that he's allowed to do it, where he's really heartfelt and you really feel for him.
Yeah.
He's great in those moments. And the scene in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles that always gets me every time, no matter how many times I've watched this movie, It's in the hotel room.
Yeah.
And it's when Steve Martin loses it and he's screaming at him. And there's that pause and like, you know, John Candy's like, you can hurt me. You know, you can do that if you want, but I like me. You know, and my wife likes me.
You're gonna make me cry.
I know, dude.
That's that moment, man.
He says my wife likes me and my customers like me because I'm the genuine article is what he says.
Yeah.
And there's that cheesy kind of synthy '80s music that starts playing in the background.
Yep.
Every time I watch it though, it just gets me because Candy he just got it. He like could do that so well. And the movie's also just like laugh out loud funny.
Where's your other hand between two pillows?
Those are two pillows at all.
That's great. That's one of those iconic moments.
This is one I watched a lot growing up.
Yeah.
We watched the crap out of this movie, and then the
great
ending
one.
is so sad. Like it's such a when you realize. I mean, spoiler alert: this movie came out in 1988, I think.
Yeah.
So, but you know, then when you realize he doesn't have a family, he doesn't have a wife. That's such a heartbreaking moment. So.
Right. Yeah. That's great, man. I like that pick.
Yeah. Number 4 for you. What do you got?
Number 4 is coming in hot. John Cleese directed this thing, and that is A Fish Called Wanda.
Yeah. Also 88, right?
88, and Kevin Kline won an Oscar for his portrayal of Otto.
Yeah.
See, my name is Otto. It means 8. Say arrivederci, Al George. Goodbye, George. This is a movie that I can watch over and over again, and it gets better with every viewing.
This is my family's favorite comedy. This
it is,
and Three Amigos growing up for me.
Incredible. It's incredible from, like I said, Kevin Kline's performance. That is Oscar-worthy. We have Jamie Lee Curtis just knocking it out of the park. John Cleese, I think, is hysterical in this movie with his just proper British attitude and not knowing how to handle Otto when he does meet him. Oh, my God. And it's Otto. It's Kevin Kline that steals the whole show. Because every time he shows up, I am dying laughing.
Well, the craziest part about this, and Mark Bernardin actually went on this whole tweet last night.
Yeah.
Or a couple nights ago. I saw it trending on Twitter because like people just were picking it up. But he was basically like, how is Kevin Kline... How did he just disappear?
I know.
What happened? Like, he was sort of like, and he wrote this whole thing about like, this is one of the few guys ever in the history of movies that won an Oscar for a purely over-the-top comedic performance.
Yes.
It's just a comedy guy. Yeah. And he wins an Oscar for it. Yeah. And he's such a huge part of so many big movies from back then. I mean, the guy could play a cowboy in Silverado, all the way to being able to, you know, co-star with Will Smith in Wild Wild West.
Right.
He's a great part. One of my favorite parts, actually, of The Big Chill. He's wonderful in that film. He's the movie star, right?
Yeah. He is. Yeah.
No, that's Tom Berenger. Sorry, he's the husband.
Which one? Oh, yeah.
Big Chill, right.
Thank you.
The movie star.
Sorry, you just scrambled my brains.
It's the mustache. It kind of was mixing them up for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, Kevin Kline is so wonderful in that movie, and I totally agree.
Yeah, where'd he go? Well, he was the father in the Beauty and the Beast remake. So,
yes. Okay.
Yeah, he's still around, but you know.
Is there a scene in Fish Called Wanda? It's been a long time where he eats the fish.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Right.
I'm toying between that scene as my most iconic, but I think I have to go to the scene where we first meet Otto.
Yeah. Okay.
Because they're sitting down to basically plan the heist.
Yeah.
And what's so great is like, Jamie Lee Curtis says, because she's sleeping with the ringleader of it all, the mastermind, and she's like, but I have my brother who's a weapons expert, so here he comes, and she steps in, and he says something to her, he looks away, and Kevin Kline just gives her a feel. He just goes, like, and it's just, and the audience is caught off guard. You're like, what is this? And then there's a line that Kevin Kline always does. It's like, we're going to do this, and we're going to go over here, and it's, is everybody okay? Ken? Yep. And then goes to Otto, and he goes, huh? What was that middle part? He always he thinks he's the smartest man in the world. Yeah. But he's not. He's actually the dumbest. And he's like, "Oh, I'm reading all these things." She's like, and Jamie Lee Curtis gives it to. I mean, Wanda, her character, just gives it to him. Yeah. You know, she's like, "Otto, the central theory of Buddhism is not every man for themselves. I looked it up." You know, and it's just, he thinks he's so smart, and he's just so incredibly funny in this. So I love it.
I think it might be the only one that I can think of a pure comedy performance that won an Oscar.
Yeah. Yeah.
It basically just doesn't happen. I mean,
it's really hard, and I think a lot of people, you know, you always get the Oscar for the drama performance, but comedy is so hard, and to find that balance in there, especially when you have Monty Python, legendary actors. Around him doing this, it was just a masterful performance, and across the board, the movie's just hysterical.
Yeah. I'll jump in now with my number 4, and this is going to be one that I think a lot of people will have higher on their list because it's probably the definitive comedy. Though my list doesn't say that, and that is Stepbrothers.
It's a great movie.
I mean, Stepbrothers feels like it gets funnier every time I watch it. To this day,
it does.
It's right. It's like it's like the perfect combination of like writing and a lot of this is improv. It's it's the combo of John C. Reilly and Will Ferrell just
they're the best
in their perfect element. All the supporting characters are wonderful. I mean, obviously Adam Scott as the brother is incredible.
Yeah,
and I haven't had a carb in 4 years.
It's great
because what really gets my dick hard, and that's helping out my family. Like he's has all these incredible lines. The parents, Richard Jenkins and Mary Steenburgen, both wonderful actors. Oscar. I mean, Mary Steenburgen is an Oscar winner.
Yeah.
And Richard Jenkins, I'm pretty sure, has been nominated for like 2 or 3 Oscars.
Oh yeah, yes.
But he's a terrific actor. I mean, everything from like Boats and Hoes to just them at the dinner table. Like they also just capture this incredible energy in this movie where like they commit so hard to being these adult children.
Yeah.
Where when he starts crying at the dinner table because he's like they're making fun of each other.
Yeah.
And he's just like,
and then later on it's like, are we becoming best friends?
Yeah.
it's a great movie.
Yeah. Shark, we got raw power. They're in the job interviews. I think I have she's and who is this gentleman behind you? I think I have word on this Pam dilemma. Hello, Miss Lady.
I want to see this movie now. I haven't seen it in a couple years.
Stepbrothers is incredible.
Very deserving to be on the list, I would say.
I feel most people would reflect that one. So we're 4 in, Brand. Any thoughts on these films? Any memories?
I mean, I absolutely love Stepbrothers.
Yeah.
The whole Richard Jenkins, he wanted to be a T-Rex. I want to be a dinosaur. You can't be a dinosaur. You're 18 years old. It's time to put childish things aside.
That's great.
Most important day of your lives, boys. Go get them. You can wear anything in my closet.
The Catalina wine mixer.
The Catalina wine mixer. All right, what do you got, Rouse? What's number 3?
All right, going on to number 3. It's another Harold Ramis, and that's I'm getting early Harold Ramis with this, but it's Animal House. This is another National Lampoon. This is another just defining movie in my childhood because I watched this thing and would snicker, and there's nudity in it, and I would look around the corner, make sure my mom wasn't around because I would watch this.
Right.
But it's become one of those movies that I quote endlessly. And it's just in every conversation, it's like, oh, that was Eric Stratton. He was damn glad to meet you. It's like, it's one of those movies that is just hysterical from John Belushi. It's like, they took the bar. Yeah. The whole fucking bar. It's like, all right, calm down. Throws the whiskey over there. Thanks, I needed that. It's just one of those movies that defines your college even. It's like, I saw this thing before I went to college, and then when I'm going to college, I'm like, is it going to be Animal House?
It's going to be just
like
Animal
House, right?
I remember this movie, there's scenes from this movie that have stuck out to me, because a lot of these movies, I'm 31, this came out in 1978.
Right.
So this came out 10 years before I was born. By the time I was 10 years old, this movie was in its 20th anniversary. So I wasn't even old enough to really get most of the jokes yet.
Yeah.
But aren't they spying on changing college girls in a tree at one point?
John Belushi's character Bluto gets a ladder, goes to the sorority house, watches them do, and it's just dumb. I mean, he's watching them have a pillow fight.
Yeah, right.
And then he moves the ladder over to get the main girl, and then he's so into it, he falls
backwards.
And I can't believe I said that it was John Landis who directed it, not Harold Ramis, because I was thinking of my next list, but. It's that movie.
Don't American President me on this one.
Yeah, I know, right? Oh, shit, that's right. That's right.
But, this movie, I mean, what am I? I'm a zit, toga.
Yep, toga party, that's become a thing.
I mean, the image of me as a child of Belushi drinking the full bottle of whiskey. Doesn't he down the entire bottle?
Entire bottle.
Right?
Yep. They took the bar, the whole effing bar. He drinks it. He needed that. They go on a road trip, tomfoolery happens. They go into a bar and it's like, do you mind if we dance with your dates? I mean, it's just, if I was you, I would be leaving. What a good idea. I mean, I quote this thing endlessly, as you can see. So it's a defining comedy for me at the time when it came out.
It actually feels like I would argue, there's an argument to be made that Animal House is the most definitive comedy of all time.
I think I could get behind that argument and that debate and be on that right side.
Because some of those older ones you talk about, like Some Like It Hot, or like some of these real classic comedies, they don't feel like they're quite as timeless. And Animal House has aged out. There's no doubt about it. It's not quite as timeless as it once was. I think that's the nature of comedy.
That is. I mean, you look. I mean, it's set in the 70s. It's really a sign of that time. I mean, you look at. I mean, they're wearing these like caps and these sweaters and the fraternity pins and
right.
It's an interesting time to see. I think actually it's set in the 60s. It reminds me of when my parents went to college and what it must have been like.
Yeah.
Like toga parties was a huge thing back then. So it really is a sign of that time. Timeless, sure, in the sense it's a time capsule when you go, that's what college was like back then. But when you watch it now, you're like, yeah, it definitely ages. And, especially in the time that we find ourselves in, Animal House probably would have been looked at as controversial. It came out today.
I mean, totally. I don't think, there's stuff. I mean, this is a good point because we're halfway through. We've done 5 of the 10 here. The R-rated comedy is one that generationally, as it changes, what was funny is no longer appropriate.
Right.
And it's happened in every single era.
Yeah.
You look at the change that happens in about 2008, and racial slurs that were kind of a thing of the past already.
Right.
But homophobic slurs at that time were funny still.
Yeah.
They were still putting them in those movies.
Oh, yeah.
By about 2008, 2009, they stopped. They just completely stop.
Mm-hmm.
The F word in that world was a comedy word. Like it's in old school.
Yeah.
The cab driver says it to him. And and at the time it was hilarious when I watched it. It's the same reason that I was just talking to Andrew about this the other day, but you watch Wedding Crashers today and you're like, can't make that movie today.
No.
It's guys that trick women into fake identities to sleep with them at weddings.
Right.
That's date rape. It's like Twitter would just be like, that's never going to see the light of day.
Oh yeah.
You guys are all fired for making this movie.
And you're looking at Animal House. I mean, a girl passes out in the guy's bedroom and he has a debate with an angel and a demon on his, it's like, what do I do? And the saving grace of this character actually is a good character,
right.
Pinto, played by Thomas Holtz, and he just goes, no, he takes her home, so that's good. But yeah, back then, I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Right. Like the idea that a character who you're supposed to like would have that debate invalidates him even being a funny character anymore.
Right,
You put that in a comedy today, you're like, that guy's gross.
Yeah, you can't really do it. I mean, it's like, and you mentioned earlier, John Belushi going and being a peeping Tom.
Yeah.
But that was back then.
Yeah.
And you can learn from this thing now, and it's like, I wonder if it would play in today's theaters. Probably not.
Yeah, it's really bizarre. It's the only genre that I can think of where consistently the R-rated comedy every 10 years, it's like it shifts again.
Absolutely.
So also because so much of it is, movies have historically been driven by male audiences, right? Male stars. There's most of the main characters are white males in a lot of these movies, especially the older you get.
Yeah.
So like today, you think about like a lot of what happens, and just the idea that you have all these straight white males like making fun of how dumb women are is just like not really a very appealing concept. And a lot of these R-rated comedies have a lot to do with that.
Yep, and that's what Animal House is. But I mentioned that one character that does have the debate. He ends up doing the good thing. In all those cases, those characters come out at the very end like changed, and they do good things. And it's like the comedy, It blasts their insecurities in this culture, this non-PC culture back then, blasts out there what they're doing. And by the end, they've all grown. They've all learned from it. And so there is some saving grace to Animal House at the end of that thing. Yeah.
So next up is going to be my number 3, and I'm very excited about this one because this is another movie where when this came out, there's a lot of inappropriate stuff in this movie. That's Tropic Thunder.
Oh, love it. I know. It's a great movie.
This almost made it higher on my list. I like this movie so much. When I've gone back to watch it again, it's one of those movies where it feels like it's hitting home runs every 10 minutes. Like every 10 minutes you're watching a scene where you're like, wow, this is just...
It's a great movie.
The idea that, we talked about getting an Oscar nomination for a comedy performance. Well,
look at that.
Downey got one for going blackface. He actually went blackface as a main character in a comedy, and he got nominated for an Oscar for it. And he is hysterical in this movie.
Oh, and this is the part of the Robert Downey Jr. renaissance because it came on the heels of Iron Man that brought him back into the, A-list celebrity game. And for doing it in a role like this, my God.
I mean, everything from Simple Jack to obviously all of Tom Cruise's scenes in this movie.
Tom Cruise, where is he? I want you to hit him as hard as in the face. It's just Len Grossman. You can't. I mean, that's, for me, Tropic Thunder is watching Tom Cruise.
Yeah,
he is so funny in that movie.
He's good friends with Ben Stiller. I'm sure you've heard the story where he says he gets the call from Stiller and he's like, hey, I want you to play this agent, Les Grossman. And Cruise is like, okay, Ben, I'll do it. He's like, okay, Ben, I'll do it.
I know, give me the impression.
He's like, I just need one thing. I want fat hands.
Yeah.
And I want to dance. And Stiller's like, sure, man,
Hey,
you do
we
whatever
get it.
you want.
That's what sold it for me was
And Cruise
those
does
arms. Those freaking arms,
Giant
man.
fat hands, and he wants to dance. And the dancing at the end is incredible.
Yeah.
And the credits dancing when he puts the. Can you hear that? And you got the apple bottom jeans.
It's so great.
It's amazing.
It's amazing.
It's this, and then of course I think the iconic scene. We've joked about this a million times on Action Movie Anatomy because one of the things we talked about is actors that they play a mentally challenged character for the sake of trying to go after an Oscar.
Yeah.
And we talk a lot about how Jamie Foxx in The Soloist went for this. He went for it.
He did. Yeah.
And he with no acclaim.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have called the approach going full soloist because we obviously on air are never going to say what he says in the movie.
Right,
It's
right.
incorrect.
You cannot say that.
But the as it's famously known for, you never go full soloist scene
Yeah.
in this movie is the scene. And
Yeah.
when you watch it now, it's hard to not piss yourself laughing. It's so funny.
It's great.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
You can see the look on Stiller's face as he's realizing it.
Yeah. I love when movies skewer Hollywood so pitch perfect, and this is that movie. It's just great. It's great.
Yeah, it's incredible. So that's my number 3.
All right, number 3 for you, huh? So that means I'm at number 2, huh? Well, this is what I was going for when I mentioned I got the wrong director, but I was looking at this, and this is another Harold Ramis. This is his first movie, and it's Caddyshack.
1980.
Caddyshack. Now, when I say I quote movies,
Yeah.
there is no movie I quote more than Caddyshack. And this movie just put Chevy Chase, put Bill Murray, put Rodney Dangerfield,
Yeah.
all of them on the map. This is like the trifecta of comedy for me. With these scenes, I mean, it's like I endlessly quote this thing from Rodney Dangerfield saying stuff,
Yeah.
from Al Sherkin, developer. Ted Knight is phenomenal in this as the judge, and Chevy Chase is Ty, and then of course Bill Murray, who just is like, and I'm going right to the iconic scene that I
Yeah,
always
of course.
remember, and it is Bill Murray holding court as he's watching some older women play, but he's doing he's on the 45, and he's got a beautiful backswing, and he's hitting, and it was completely improvised. It was completely improvised. He just goes out there and he starts hitting these like flowers, and talking about how he's on the Augusta tour and what he will do and how he's going to catch the gopher, and it's just like 10-minute sequence of him just talking to nobody.
Yeah.
And I just adore it so much.
This movie feels like it's not quite a wild comedy. Like Animal House is definitely a wild comedy. I think
That's a
Animal
wild
House
comedy,
is,
yeah.
Animal House is the first one, but you look at like the '80s, like Bachelor Party is a great example of
Sure.
that's like the wild comedy, right?
That is, yeah.
But Caddyshack still feels like it has a lot of elements to it.
I mean, it does. It has the wild, raunchy kind of comedy stuff when you go with the caddies. I think about them jumping in the pool and throwing the Baby Ruth in there,
Yeah,
and that's
right.
another
What's that,
iconic
Baby
scene.
Ruth? That's the one- that's the
Duty!
one.
Yeah, that's really the one you mentioned. It's like, and then, Bill Murray's going, here it is, it's no big deal, and he just eats it. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just, it's great. But when you get to like Ty, Chevy Chase's character,
Yeah.
and when he has that scene with Bill Murray's character, and they're sitting there and they're going back and forth, and you think about what was going on at that time. This is the Saturday Night Live crew coming in there,
Right.
and Bill Murray and Chevy Chase hated each other, and Harold Ramis had to keep them together somehow.
I didn't know
And
this.
So that scene that happens in Bill Murray, when Ty is looking for his ball and he's playing because he's got a bet and he's going to lose money or not, they improvised everything there, and they hated each other at the time because Bill Murray made a splash. Chevy Chase does 1 year on Saturday Night Live and leaves to become a big movie star. Bill
Right.
Murray comes in and becomes just as popular, maybe more so.
Yeah.
You could debate that fact. And so when they get together on set, their sparks were flying, and you can see it in their eyes.
Yeah.
And that's what I love is that Chevy Chase is looking at Bill Murray going, I hate you. And Bill Murray's looking back going, yeah, that's fine. I hate you too. and for them to just go through that.
Who do you think is
brilliant.
more famous all time? Murray?
I would say Bill Murray.
It's got to be, right?
Easy. He was nominated for an Oscar.
Yeah.
He came and once Wes Anderson got his hands on him and put him in Rushmore and
He
then
had
Lost
a
in Translation.
career
yeah.
resurgence.
Career resurgence,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So that is your number 2.
That's my number 2.
I'm going to jump in with my number 2. And we mentioned it earlier, and that's There's Something About Mary.
There's something about Mary, man. Yeah. It's great. It's a good one.
It's so good. This is another movie when I got my hands on it again just a couple years ago and rewatched it. There's elements to this movie that just like when I watched again, first of all, Matt Dillon just as a character, period,
He's great.
is just so good.
When he gets his teeth.
Oh, and he gets
he's
the-
like, you like him? And he's just, stop it, dude. Stop
When
it.
he first walks in his office and he gets up and he pulls his pants up, his pants are off under his desk.
Well, I love that movie so much because it really starts and it sets the tone immediately. It's Ben Stiller sitting there just unloading his problems, and then the therapist sneaks in and he's still got the napkin on and mustard on his face, and he's just like, I think it is Richard Jenkins, isn't it?
I think it is.
Yeah, I don't know, but that's just the funniest part, and it sets it off into this direction that you just don't know what you're going to get.
And he's like something about like rest stops are the breeding ground for the homosexuals. What? We'll just pick up there next week. Delve into that next week.
And then that's a great callback too, because they go to the rest stop,
it's
and then he
amazing.
falls, and then all those guys stand up. It's like, what? Oh my God, it's so brilliant. I love it so much.
Yeah, and I think if we're going to talk iconic scenes, it's how's it not the hair gel scene?
It's the hair gel.
It's the hair gel scene.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of the defining '90s comedy moments. Period.
Yeah.
Right. Is Cameron Diaz with the hair, with the jizz in her hair?
Yep.
With the thing, and it stays up all night.
Yeah, and she doesn't even notice. She's like, "Is that hair gel?" Like, and that setup is beautiful. He's like, Chris Elliott's character's like,
Yeah.
You haven't flogged the dolphin?
Yeah.
You haven't cleared the pipes? You haven't got.
Going in with a
"All right."
loaded gun.
Yeah, he's going in with a loaded gun, everybody. And then he just gets the catalog, the lingerie catalog, or not even that. It's like a Sears
catalog. Yeah.
And so he has to do that. They can't find it. I mean,
Woogie? Don Woganowski, Ted. And Matt Dillon, everything he says when he's looking up and he sees the older chick. Chick in the armor, Ted.
it's a great movie. It's a great pick to put for your number 2. I stand behind it.
I remember watching this like in elementary school because I think this movie came out. I want to say 98, I think.
Yeah.
I was 10 years old.
Oh, my God.
I remember
I'm old.
Remember it came out and my buddy Jonathan, who was like much more sheltered family, came over and like my dad was like whatever, and we rented it. And I watched it with him, and he went home and told his parents, and they were like pissed that he had watched it.
Oh, of course. Yeah, that's one of those movies, man. You got
Cameron Diaz also like in that moment, she's one of the rare actresses ever, I think, to have at least for like a minute that sort of moniker of like just the most perfect, beautiful, like everybody was in love with Cameron Diaz, which is why My Best Friend's Wedding in 1997 is such a win.
I love that movie too. But yeah, she was coming off like, made a splash with The Mask. And then this really, I would say Something About Mary really put her on the map.
I agree.
Yeah, because it just blew up because, yeah, she's beautiful. She can act and all this stuff. But it takes, for her to do comedy that well is something that really needs to be commended.
What about Brett Favre?
Oh, God. I love it. God, now I got to see this movie.
I know. It makes you want to rewatch all of them. Yep. So we just got one left each. Brandon, any thoughts? Any add-ins here? Do you think of any that were top of your list?
Yeah, I think now that I've had time to stew over it, Tropic Thunder might actually be at the top of my list.
It's so good.
Yeah.
It's a good one. Yeah, it's like I want to rearrange this list. Every time we get to a movie, honorable mention or otherwise, we talk about it, it's like, oh, man. I didn't realize how hard this might be to get this in here.
Well, yeah, and I look at this list, and what else is on this list that we haven't included, and it's like, you get me talking about, we just covered Pineapple Express over on Action Movie Anatomy. It's like, okay, I love that movie. You get me talking about The Wedding Crashers, adore that movie. Look at 40-Year-Old Virgin. I mean, how do I not put 40-Year-Old Virgin?
40-Year-Old Virgin,
so
I know. It's on my honorable mentions as well, and I didn't even mention it either, but Ghostbusters.
Ghostbusters
is a perfect movie. It really is, and I toyed with putting it on there on my top 5, and then I just get, it has some sci-fi elements to it, obviously some horror elements.
Right.
So that's why I kept it off, trying to go straight comedy, but that's one as well.
Yeah, so many good ones to talk about. So we got one left each.
Okay.
You go ahead. You go first.
Well, as I did when you asked me to be on this, I said, great, here's my list. And I sent you a text that said, number 1, Big Lebowski. Number 2, Big Lebowski. Number 3, Big Lebowski. Number 4, and number 5, Big Lebowski. It is my number 1. It's Coen Brothers.
Is it top 5 favorite movies of all time for you?
It's in my top 10.
Yeah.
I wouldn't put it in top 5, but it is definitely, the movie itself is in my top 10 movies of all time because this movie kept getting better over and over. Every time you see it, Jeff Bridges is iconic in this role.
Yeah.
The dude. John Goodman should have been nominated for an Oscar, for supporting Oscar. I mean, Steve Buscemi is amazing as Donnie. Julianne Moore as Maude.
Tara Reid.
Tara Reid as the wife, Bunny Lebowski. It just is the funniest. I cry laughing at this movie. And it's it's like fuck it, dude, let's go bowling.
Yeah.
It's you say that
John Turturro.
John Turturro is the Jesus, and I know he's doing a spinoff that they just dated. He finally shot this thing in like 2016 though, and they're finally getting to it.
Really?
So I don't know if it's gonna. I don't know.
Never a good sign.
I don't think it has the same chance of landing like it did in the public consciousness of this.
Right.
But this is a movie that didn't do very well when it came out because I don't think a lot of people knew. I mean, we're coming off of Fargo, and they got these. I want to say it was Fargo, right? Yeah, I think it was.
Fargo's 96. This is 98, I believe.
Yep. So when you think Fargo, that's an Academy Award winning movie. Obviously, Frances McDormand wins the Best Actress Oscar for us. And then they do this, and it's the guy that does nothing.
Yeah.
That is a complete loser, and you meet the dude, and he's buying cream for his White Russians.
He's based on a real guy.
Yeah, it's their friend, the Coen's friend.
He's this guy, Jeff. Jeff something. I just was at my brother's 40th birthday over the weekend in Seattle or Portland, and my buddy, one of the guys he grew up with, his parents were one of the Seattle Seven, which they mention in the movie.
Wow, that's
time. And so the real dude was one of the Seattle Seven.
Yeah,
these activists,
right.
these like human rights activists, I think, in the 70s.
Yeah.
And so he grew up knowing the real dude as one of his parents' friends. And he was like, and of course, he was like, yeah, we knew him until he started a record label with my dad, and then didn't ever pay him on something, and they fell out. I was like, sounds just like the dude,
Yeah,
like,
it's the dude is really one of the best characters. He just makes me laugh all the time. And for my the best scene, the most iconic for me, it comes at the end. And spoilers, I guess, because it's a plot point, a major plot point.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen Big Lebowski, I guess turn away if you want to see it. But they're scattering Donnie's ashes after Donnie, unfortunately dies of a heart attack.
Yeah.
And they're on the cliffside, and they couldn't afford an urn. So Walter, the scene before, goes, F this, where's a Ralph's? And they go and they get coffee. They get coffee grounds, dump them out, and they use that. And so they're standing there, and Walter gives this like kind of all over the place speech in memoriam of Donnie, and the dude's just sitting there doing what the dude does. Just, all right, come on, Walter. And Walter does the ashes, and they all fly back into the dude's face. And I'm telling you, every single time I see this part, I cannot stop laughing because of everything they've gone through. And the dude's just standing there, and he doesn't go like, oh, shit, and move. He just takes it. It just all goes into his face, and then Walter is doing this, and he looks at him, oh, I'm sorry, dude. Goes, Walter, you fucked it up. You fucked it. It's just, I can't. I fall out of my chair laughing every time. So, Big Lebowski.
I think it's probably the most loved Coen Brothers movie.
Yeah.
Even though they have a Best Picture in there, even though Fargo's in there, even though Raising Arizona.
Raising Arizona.
Yeah, I mean, these great movies.
No Country for Old Men,
But I just really think that this is the most loved.
I think so. And again, it didn't do very well when it came out. I don't think a lot of people knew what to do with it. And this is a movie that defines the end of college for me because my fraternity brothers were like, you got to see this movie. And I watched it with them. I'm like, it's not that funny.
Yeah.
It's really not that funny. And then when you keep watching it, that humor starts to really come out, and you start to really notice what they're going for in the humor, and then it becomes endlessly quotable, and here we are.
Yeah, it's one of the most quotable movies of all time.
Yeah.
So my number one movie.
Yeah.
I remember seeing this in theaters, and this is Old School, 2000.
I love it. I love it. It didn't even make Old School. Never made a memorable honorable mention for me.
Yeah.
But I love that you put it in. That's your number one. That's great.
I think the reason I did it, and because it feels like it's more symbolic in my era in a lot of the way that yours are for you.
Yeah.
Old School is like the movie that kicks off that whole run of that decade of these guys together.
Right.
And it's
like
also
your Vince Vaughn's and
Will Ferrell also. He didn't have a hit yet. Really. Will Ferrell had been on SNL for like 7 years, and he had tried a few movies. He had done Roxbury, and he had parts in Superstar, and he showed up in a bunch of movies. Austin Powers 2, he's really funny.
Sure.
1 and 2 is Mustafa. But this is it's not his movie, but he steals the show. Frank the Tank.
Frank the Tank, man.
You know, and I mean, you talk about quotable, it's like, I don't know, maybe Beth Beyond. I don't know if we'll have time.
We're going streaking.
Right. All these moments, I've seen this movie so many times.
Yeah.
And some of the stuff that Will Ferrell does in this movie is stuff where he's he's working on the car and he's like, took the old restrict blade off the red drag and give it a little more juice. Hey, Mike. There's no mic there. that's just Will Ferrell just as a genius with comedy and his timing, and I mean, I love the hair metal soundtrack. Here I Go Get On My Own as the theme song.
It's one of my favorite parts is when Vince Vaughn is doing the rings and he's got a cigarette and he's doing it well. He actually can hang there. It cracks me up every time.
Jeremy Piven as the dean is incredible.
Perfect. Yep.
But the scene for me, and I think it's the scene for most people, is Will Ferrell's at the birthday party and he's talking to Sean William Scott
and he gets tranked
and he shoots himself in the neck. Whoa! He's like, yes, that's awesome. Here, stick one in the jugular, man. You should pull that shit out. That shit is not cool. And he's like, he goes, I did. Is that bad? You should pull that shit out, man. That shit is not cool.
It's so funny.
And then he starts walking.
You got a dart in your neck.
Dart in your neck,
what?
man.
You're crazy, man.
You're
I like you, but you're crazy, man.
When he starts just pushing people aside,
pushes the kid's head, and he falls in the pool.
Falling. Oh, that's great. That's a good pick, man.
And he's getting CPR, and he wakes up, and he pushes him off, then he kicks him and falls back in the pool.
That's great. I love it. I'm glad you picked it, actually.
Because Farrell's kissing Sean William Scott in the dream.
Oh, fuck. It's so great.
Yeah. That movie, like, I just remember I saw it, in 2003. I was 15, so it's exactly the right age.
Yeah.
I saw it in theaters, and I just lost it. And it was the funniest movie.
Yeah.
Frank the Tank became a character, he's like an all-time party character.
Oh, yeah.
So you say Frank the Tank over there, it's on the same level as, like, Bluto,
Right.
It's like the same kind of thing.
There's a lot of similarities to Animal House and Old School.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons, starting a fraternity, but there's some the DNA of Animal House is in Old School.
Right.
Yeah, and I love it.
Todd Phillips, I'm here for the gangbang.
Yeah.
It's as good as it
You're
gets.
my boy, Blue.
Yeah, you're my boy,
You're my
Blue.
boy, Blue.
Oh, I mean, and him singing Kansas at the funeral.
Oh,
There's just that movie. That movie is like, I think the reason I love it so much is because while a lot of the other movies on this list are, I guess, like harder hitting maybe or funnier, more R-rated. This is one of those ones where you feel like it came out in the beginning of this era and it's still just as funny.
Yeah.
It's almost like more innocent in some ways.
Yeah.
Simpler.
yeah, it is. That's a good way to put it.
So that's going to wrap up our top 5 R-rated comedies episode here on The Action Guys. Big thanks to Mark Yodi Reilly for sitting on this one in Andrew's place.
My pleasure.
Mark, where can the folks find you if they want to follow along?
You can follow me on Twitter. That's where I put everything out there, at Riley Around. I got the Riley Roundtable, drops on Collider Conversations every Thursday. I got Rule of Two that goes live most times every Monday evening at 5 p.m. PST. That's what I host, the Star Wars show with Mark Fernandez. And then check out Collider Live. It's our live radio show, live morning show, I should say, that I produce and I'm a part of every Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. PST.
And Brandon Hanna sitting in today. Brandon, where can the folks find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at BrandonHanna07 and in the Movie Trivia Schmodown as the Hitman.
And you guys can find me at Ben Bateman Media, all of the places you can find people on the socials. Action Industries everywhere else, at Team Action Show on Twitter. And go check out our YouTube channel, Action Industries. You can get the full video versions of this show. And, of course, in the Movie Trivia Schmodown. Get your tickets for Action Live, August 29th in New York now. Super duper excited.
That's
Mark,
going to be fun.
Thanks a lot, man.
Thanks for having me, dude.
Let's go kick ass in the Schmodown, man.
Let's do it. We need a belt.
Yeah, we do.
Woo.